American retailer Dick's Sporting Goods plans to acquire its smaller rival Foot Locker. It's an American $2.4 billion deal. For more on that would mean for both of the retailers, let's go to Cristina Fernández, Managing Director, Senior Research Analyst at Telsey Advisory Group. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me about your take on the timing of this.
Yeah, the timing definitely was unexpected. I think the fact that Foot Locker had been under stress recently, both the stock and then what we can see from the performance, the pre-announcement today, probably helped accelerate the deal. Dick's commented on their call that they had been looking at this transaction for a long time. So it definitely seemed like it had been in the works, but I'm certain that Dick's probably got a better price just because of the weakness that we've seen year to date with the stock and the performance of the company.
Yeah, we just had the Foot Locker stock price up. It was up 85%, which is just insanity. So clearly the Foot Locker investors are liking this. What will change in this deal? I understand Foot Locker will keep its brand. So are we going to notice changes at the local stores?
I don't think immediately. Dick's was very clear on their call today that they expect Foot Locker to run as a standalone business and keep what they're doing today. So I don't think in the near term there's going to be a lot of changes or a lot of change to the consumer. That's apparent. I think over time, what you could see is Dick's try to adopt some of the best practices you've seen at Dick's to Foot Locker. But I think that will be probably a year or two more into the integration. What they talked today a lot was about kind of the back end, some of the synergies when it comes to purchasing and having more power with the vendors, and then also consolidating some of the costs when it comes to like freight, contract, things like that. But in the near term, given that it's two different businesses, it seems like they will stay like that, at least initially.
We don't have Dick's Sporting here in Canada. So can you, for the Canadian viewer, just tell us a little bit more about that business and what it looks like and how it compares to Foot Locker?
Yeah, I mean, they're different businesses. The way to think about a Dick's Sporting Goods, it's a big store, 50,000, 60,000 square foot. It has a breakdown, about half of it is hard lines. So think about outdoor products, bikes, sporting goods equipment for football, for soccer, for baseball. And then the other half is apparel and footwear. So big box, off-mall, suburban locations. By comparison, Foot Locker doors are mostly like in malls. They're small, 5,000 square foot doors, really catered to that more like sneakerhead, also basketball, but that consumer that's young, 18, 24-year-old, that's really into sneaker and sneaker culture. So they're quite different in the way they operate, and also really small stores. So two different consumers. Where they do overlap is that Dick's over the last, let's call it 5 to 10 years, has really been expanded their footwear assortment. So Foot Locker is 85% footwear. Dick's is, in the 20s, and they've been expanding their footwear space in the stores and getting more of newer products. So you see brands like On, you see Hoka, New Balance, and they've actually taken share from Foot Locker in some markets over the last couple of years.
Do you see some of what Dick's offers, products that typically aren't seen in a Foot Locker store, now perhaps sort of crossing over?
I would say not a lot. There could be instances, like I think Foot Locker is very much about basketball, sort of like the high heat product, but Foot Locker does have a banner that's called Champs that is more geared towards the athlete. So there could be some of the running product that Dick's has that could go to Champs. But I think there's less of that, because I feel like the key for this to work is to sort of differentiate the concepts and have the product that's more culturally relevant being Foot Locker, and the product that's more athletic be at Dick's. So I think you want to keep that separate. Where there could be benefits from Dick's is Dick's has a lot of private label brands, particularly in apparel, that have done very well. Foot Locker is not very strong in apparel, so that could be an area where there could be some overlap and some learnings that could be taken from Dick's to Foot Locker.
Cristina, can you also touch back on the amount of pressure Foot Locker has been under as a result, I guess, of the Trump tariffs, and how that may have put them in a unique position here for this deal to happen?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that play into why Foot Locker has been weak. Tariffs are the latest, and it really has to do with the consumer sentiment being weaker in the U.S. and their consumer who is more lower income, although sneakers are a big priority, just taking a step back and not spending as much. But Foot Locker has been losing share. You know, if you look back at pre-pandemic, they have, once they started being negatively impacted by the brands going more direct. So Nike, Adidas selling their own product. Then you have other players that really came into the US, you know, like JD Sports bought a lot of different companies in the US. So there's just been a lot of different factors that have played into Foot Locker being weaker. And obviously their biggest assortment is Nike. Nike used to be 75% of sales at one point. Now it's 60%. But that dependence on Nike has also hurt them over time. So this is just the latest, but there's a couple of factors that have driven the underperformance.
Cristina Fernández is the Managing Director, Senior Research Analyst at Telsey Advisory Group. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.